Most people think they're moving into a neighborhood. What they don't realize is that in Florida, they're often moving into an entire town. And once you start paying attention, you see these places everywhere. Not just subdivisions, not just gated communities, entire ecosystems. Places with their own restaurants, schools, parks, events, shopping centers, medical facilities, walking trails, and even their own identity. And two of the most interesting examples are Abacoa and Jupiter and Tradition in Port St. Lucie. Now, on paper, these communities have a lot in common. They're both master planned. They're both extremely popular. They're both successful. And they're both designed around a lifestyle. But in reality, they attract much different people. In fact, many of the people who love Abacoa will probably never move to Tradition, and many of the people who love Tradition would never go to Abacoa because these communities represent two completely different versions of Florida living. Let's start with Abacoa. If you've never been there, Abacoa sits in Jupiter in northern Palm Beach County. And the first thing you'll notice is that it doesn't feel like most Florida developments at all. The streets are narrower, the homes sit closer to the road, many have front porches, the garages are hidden behind the homes. People walk, kids ride bikes, neighbors actually know each other, and that wasn't by accident. Abacoa was designed around the idea that people should be able to live, work, and spend time together without constantly getting into their cars. Today, it includes multiple neighborhoods surrounding a central town area. You have Roger Dean Stadium there, spring training right there, restaurants, coffee shops, community events, the FAU Honors College campus, research facilities, parks, walking trails. And one of the things I always find interesting about Abacoa is how many residents spend most of their time actually relatively in that small area. They'll grab coffee, go to dinner, attend an event, walk their dog, catch a baseball game, and much of it happens within the community itself. It feels connected, established, almost like a small town that grew naturally over time, except it didn't. It was designed that way. And if you've spent time in Jupiter, you probably understand why people love it. You're close to the beaches, close to Palm Beach Gardens, close to Jupiter Inlet, close to some of the most desirable real estate in Florida. The location alone is a huge part of the appeal, but that location comes with a price. If you're looking at a single-family home in Abacoa today, you're often talking about homes that can range from, six figures over $1 million easy, depending on the neighborhood and size and condition. And that's just where the story starts to change, because eventually people begin asking a question: what if I want more house? What if I want newer construction? What if I don't want to spend that much? And that's where tradition enters the conversation. The contrast is immediate because tradition doesn't feel established. It feels like it's still being written. Located in Port St. Lucie, Tradition is one of the most ambitious master plan developments in Florida. And unlike Abacoa, the mature landscaping, the established neighborhoods create a subtle feel. Tradition feels like growth everywhere. New homes, new roads, new businesses, new neighborhoods, new construction. You can literally drive through parts of Tradition and see areas that didn't exist a few years ago or months. The scale is enormous. There are schools, retail centers, restaurants, medical facilities, the Cleveland Clinic campus, walking trails, parks, community events, and thousands upon thousands of homes. In many ways, it functions more like a city than a neighborhood. And that's where things get interesting, because when people compare Abacoa and Tradition, they're often, comparing much more than communities. They're comparing lifestyles. I know plenty of people who have moved from, let's say, Palm Beach County to Tradition, And almost every time the conversation starts the same way. They aren't necessarily searching for Port St. Lucie. They were searching for affordability. They wanted a newer home, maybe, more square footage, a larger backyard, a modern floor plan, and eventually the numbers pushed them north. Because let's be honest, Jupiter isn't, cheap. Palm Beach Gardens isn't cheap. Tequesta is not cheap. And for many families, the idea of getting significantly more house for their money means, it's very attractive. A buyer who might be looking at an older home approaching $1 million in Jupiter may find a much newer home in Tradition for substantially less. That's a difficult, comparison to ignore. But there's a trade-off because every decision has one. It means longer commutes, much longer sometimes. For some people, it means way farther from work and family. It's a thing. Places they've spent years building their routines, and it's all different then. And nobody likes to talk about it, but you should, because saving money on the house doesn't automatically mean saving money on life. If you're driving from Tradition into Palm Beach Gardens every day, commute can easily become an hour or more, depending on traffic. 5 days a week, suddenly you're spending 10 plus hours a week in your car. That's a whole nother entire workday every single week. For some people, that's completely worth it. For others, it's a deal breaker. And that's why some people look at Tradition and immediately say yes, while others immediately say no. Not because one is better than the other, but because they're solving different problems. Personally, if I'm being honest, I'm probably more of an Abacoa person. I like the established feel. I like the character. I like the location. I like being closer to the coast. I like the feeling that the community has already grown into itself. But that's exactly why this comparison is interesting, because there are plenty of people who would choose Tradition without hesitation. They love the newer homes. They love the growth. They love the amenities. They love what their money buys. And neither side is wrong. What I find fascinating is how often people identify with these communities more than cities they're actually in. People don't just say they live in Jupiter. They say they live in Abacoa. People don't just say they live in Port St. Lucie. They say they live in Tradition. The community becomes part of their identity. And when that happens, you realize these places aren't really functioning as neighborhoods anymore. They're functioning as towns, self-contained places with their own culture routines, gathering spots, events, personalities. And I think that's one of the most interesting things happening in Florida right now. Because as the state continues growing, we're not just building houses, we're building entirely new ways of living. Maybe Florida's future looks a little more like Tradition, but Florida's charm often looks a little more like Abacoa. And that's why these two communities are so fascinating. They're two completely different versions of Florida living and how it is. So I'm curious, if you had to choose, would you pick Abacoa or Tradition? And more importantly, why? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the places, communities, and trends shaping Florida today, don't forget to subscribe because we've got a lot more to discover. See you tomorrow, guys.